Blackhawks preseason hockey officially begins tonight, and Connor Bedard will be in the lineup. I'll go through everything to note before the puck drops at Little Caesars Arena.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Blackhawks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman, also Blackhawks beat writer for Chicago Hockey Now. You can go and check me out on X at Jack Bushman too, but make sure to follow my strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey so you don't miss any of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. And also just a quick reminder to please go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. If you haven't done so already, it's 100% free, won't cost you anything, and really does help me out in a massive way in growing my platform. But happy Tuesday, Blackhawks fans, or should I say, happy game day, as the Hawks are set to kick off preseason action tonight. Their first of 6 preseason contests will be against the Red Wings up in Detroit, 6 p.m. Central Time puck drop, with the game being televised on CHSN, but definitely had to go through everything of note before the Blackhawks preseason gets underway here tonight up at Little Caesars Arena. Real quick before I do, though, just want to quickly apologize for not having a show come out yesterday. As some of you can probably tell based on how I'm sounding here, I have not been feeling the best over these last few days. I had a weekend full of travel as I headed to Iowa for a wedding. Shout out to the McClorys, by the way, for a great time. But then I also had to come back in like 5 or 6 hours of sleep and go to a friend's birthday party yesterday as well. There's been some rain in the weather whenever the temperatures change. Usually ends up doing me dirty, but just wanted to briefly apologize for not having a show come out yesterday, and also for those of you who are bearing with me through a little bit of a sore throat here on today's episode, but definitely want to talk through who we can expect to see in the lineup for the Blackhawks tonight up in Detroit, and it's going to be a pretty noteworthy group. Connor Bedard is set to play along with Frank Nazar, Oliver Moore, Ryan Green, Sam Renzel, Artem Levshinov, Wyatt Kaiser. It's shaping up to be a real fun night in Detroit. Just a heads up, it's not going to be the longest episode here today because of my voice, but did want to mention the notables who are going to be in the lineup and how Blashill is kind of going about his forward lines and defensive pairings, at least when the Blackhawks hit the ice for their morning skate just about 10 or 15 minutes ago. But starting with the forward group, I mentioned Connor Bedard, Frank Nazar, Oliver Moore, 3 standouts among the forward group that's going to be in the lineup tonight. Well, up on the top line with Connor Bedard, I've spoken on the show how it's mostly been Andre Burakovsky and Ryan Donato getting the first look on the wings with Bedsy. Well, neither of them are going to be in the lineup tonight, and it's going to be a little bit of a combination of NHLers with some prospects for not only these 4 forward lines, but in the back end on the defensive pairings as well. But with Bedard tonight on the top line, looks like it's going to be Colton Dach and Lukas Reichel. And I think this is a super noteworthy opportunity for both of these players, right? To me, Dach, I've been outspoken about how because of his size, his physicality, and the Blackhawks just not really having a whole lot of that in the rest of their forward group, I really do think that opens up a door for Dach to make the NHL roster just because his skill set is pretty unique for what the Blackhawks have in this NHL group. And he's been getting some pretty good opportunities on the quote-unquote 3rd and 4th lines through the opening couple days of training camp. And this is a real noteworthy opportunity for him, getting a chance to play along with Connor Bedard to showcase that he belongs as part of this NHL roster. I'm sure Dach is going to get, 2 or 3, maybe even 4 preseason games to prove his case over these next couple of weeks, but a real big start. A good start here tonight would be really big for him and trending in the right direction to crack that NHL roster, which I ultimately do feel like he's going to wind up accomplishing. And then on the other wing with Connor Bedard, I accidentally mentioned his name a moment ago, but it's going to be Lukas Reichel. And of course, Reichel feels like he's kind of in limbo once again with the Blackhawks, right? Not seemingly going to get top 6 opportunities this season and hasn't really worked all that well for him so far in his career in the bottom 6. And Blashill even said to the media, this is kind of a make or break camp here for Lucas. So starts right here, right now for him to kind of change the narrative around him these last couple of years, that he's kind of a struggling tweener at this stage of his career. Real good opportunity for him tonight to play with some pace along with Connor Bedard on that top line, while Colton Dach is more than likely going to be somewhat of a net front presence for that trio and someone who could cycle and win pucks down low along the boards. The second line for the Blackhawks, Frank Nazar, no surprise, he's going to be in that second line center spot as he's in the lineup here tonight. Playing the wings with Nazar, the actually only line that Blashill kept together when the Hawks went through an inter-squad scrimmage yesterday for actually the first time during training camp. I'll be touching more on that here during segment 3 of today's episode, so make sure to stick with me up until that point, Blackhawks fans. But Nazar has only been skating with Teuvo Teravainen and Tyler Bertuzzi through the first 5 days of training camp. I think that gives you a pretty good indication of what Blashill wants his second line at least to be when the regular season kicks off. But like Bedard, neither Burakovsky or Donato in the lineup tonight, neither Teuvo Teravainen or Tyler Bertuzzi are going to be playing up in Detroit either. Instead, it's going to be Oliver Moore and Aiden Thompson on the wings along with Nazar. For Moore, obviously a couple of years younger than Colton Dach, but in a similar, group of guys, young players who are trying to cement themselves as full-time NHLers, feels like the Blackhawks, by putting Oliver Moore in this chance, and also what we heard Blashill say to the media as well, saying, hey, if the younger players are out playing the veteran guys, they're the ones who are going to be given the opportunities. So Oliver Moore has a real good chance to make a statement here tonight and play with some good speed and make an impact all over the ice, along with Frank Nazar, a guy who plays the game with a similar mentality. And then Aiden Thompson, even though he's likely to begin things down in the AHL, another guy who plays with some pretty good pace, and I think, has had some decent moments to kick off training camp and through the Tom Curvers Prospect Showcase a couple of weekends ago. Thought he tried to do a little bit too much up in Minnesota that weekend, but still feel like his offensive abilities, and again, along with his pace, and he's another guy who played a pretty solid two-way game in his 3 years with Denver, started his career there playing in a checking role, another guy who fits kind of the mold of what Nazar and Oliver Moore want to do out there on the ice. So I thought that forward line made a lot of sense. Down on the third line for the Blackhawks, Ryan Green is going to be in that third line center spot again in a similar fashion to Oliver Moore and Colton Dach. Blashill is giving Green the opportunity to show us that he belongs with these guys. He's going to be skating along with Joey Anderson, who's in a little bit of a interesting situation considering he could make the NHL roster. It's probably not the most likely outcome, but just because he could be utilized as a healthy scratch where Blashill wouldn't feel too bad about him not being in the lineup regularly, as opposed to that's not really the spot where you want a young prospect to be in. You want them getting game reps regularly. We'll see what winds up happening with Joey Anderson over the next 2 weeks, but he's going to be on the third line with Ryan Green, along with Sam Lafferty, who's back with the Blackhawks once again. And then down on the fourth line for the Blackhawks, 2024 first-round pick Merrick Vanacker is going to be in that left wing spot. Dominic Toninato, kind of in a similar position to Joey Anderson. He's going to be in that 4C position. And then Jack Pridham. If you've listened to my Blackhawks prospect rankings since the 2024 NHL draft went down, then I think pretty highly about Jack Pridham. Really interested to see how he's going to fare in preseason action along with Merrick Vanacker down there on the fourth line. But that takes care of the Blackhawks' projected forward group for their preseason opener here tonight against the Detroit Red Wings. Again, a reminder, the game kicks off at 6 p.m. Central Time with the game being televised on CHSN. Coming up in just a moment, Blackhawks fans, stick with me as I'll dive through the projected defensive pairings as well as the starting goaltender. But first, I do got to talk to you all real quick about the fine folks over at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or even investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. But that's why there is Monarch Money, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, super easy to use interface, both available on your phone and on your laptop. And Monarch does the heavy lifting for you so that you can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally, feel in control of your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks any longer. Go and use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps at monarchmoney.com, and you'll also get half off on your first year. Again, that's 50% off on your first year at monarchmoney.com when you use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps. Segment 2 here, Blackhawks fans, diving into the projected defensive pairings for tonight's preseason opener against the Red Wings, as well as who we can expect to see in between the pipes for the Blackhawks. Starting things off on the top defensive pairing, at least based on what we just saw at the morning skate, looks like it's going to be Ethan Del Mastro and Sam Rinzel, which is not necessarily a pairing that I expected to be together to open up training camp, but Blashill has had those two, Del Mastro and Rinzel, skating together for, I think, every day of training camp thus far. I just kind of expected that it was going to be Alex Vlasic and Sam Rinzel as the team's top defensive pairing to open up the season, just based on the amount of success that Rinzel found in that spot late in the year last year and just looking already capable to handle that type of role. Doesn't mean that, it's not going to happen at some point, but I just thought that that's where he was going to be right out of the gate when training camp begun. But instead, he's been skating with Ethan Del Mastro, who I've said I feel like is ready to be a full-time NHLer, but still has to prove it here throughout training camp and the preseason. Real good opportunity for him to do that tonight on the top defensive pairing along with Sam Rinzel. The second pairing for the Blackhawks looks like it's going to be Wyatt Kaiser and Artem Levshunov. Those two were a duo on the back end for the Blackhawks late last season as well, when Levshunov appeared in 18 NHL games. Kaiser got called up from the Rockford Ice Hogs and really looked more confident than ever and better than he had in any of his previous NHL stints. He did that along with Artem Levshunov on the same defensive pairing. I expected that to be an NHL pairing to open up the regular season when I projected the pairings on the show not too long ago. So no surprise whatsoever that they've been together for all of training camp since, Kaiser finally agreed to a new deal with the Blackhawks. He's been right in that spot along with Levshunov, and I think it's a really good position for both of them. On the third pairing for the Blackhawks, looks like 2022 7th overall pick Kevin Korchinski is going to be in the lineup skating alongside Louis Crevier, which, again, I think this is a pairing that makes sense for the expectation for these two players heading into this season, which is that both of them are I guess Crevier is probably going to be utilized as the NHL extra, but Kevin Korchinski is right on the cusp of pushing for an NHL roster spot. Probably has to outplay one of, Wyatt Kaiser or Ethan Del Mastro, I think, pretty severely in order for him to make that NHL group, because he's still so young, because he's only spent one season down at the AHL level, another season there by no means. Definitely is going to be something that would help his development. And I don't think it would be looked at as a bad thing for Korchinski to start the year there once again, just considering, again, how many older defensemen are now kind of on the scene. And if already, a guy like Ethan Del Mastro, a guy like Wyatt Kaiser, they've been through those stages a little bit longer. But I did think it was worth pointing out that I kind of expected Matt Grzelcyk to get an opportunity in the Blackhawks lineup tonight since he signed a PTO. Blashill said, if some of the young guys don't live up to their expectations, Grzelcyk could wind up getting a contract here in Chicago. I just figured he was probably going to play in this preseason opener. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case, as Kevin Korchinski and Louis Crevier look like they're going to round out the third pairing. Ashton Kuhnbe and Kevin Fitzgerald were skating during the morning skate here this morning as well as a defensive pairing. Maybe I actually forget if in the preseason you can dress an extra couple of skaters or one extra skater or whatnot. Looked like Fitzgerald was the one who they wanted to serve as the seventh defenseman originally. But Ashton Kuhnbe, a member of the 2025 draft class, think the Hawks, maybe want to see him get some preseason action in before sending him back to the WHL with the Seattle Thunderbirds. But I'm guessing that's probably not going to be happening here tonight, considering Korchinski and Crevier both ahead of him in the pecking order and deserve to get these opportunities. And then in goal for the Blackhawks, trying to look if it's been confirmed as of right now, but I believe it's going to be Arvid Soderblom who's going to be in between the pipes, likely going to come out at the halfway point, and Drew Commesso looks like he's going to be the one to replace him. Soderblom, obviously, with Laurent Brossoit having undergone yet another surgery and being out long-term once again. He's going to be Spencer Knight's backup to open up the regular season. And then Drew Commesso going to be the number one down in the AHL with the Rockford IceHogs. So there's how the Blackhawks lineup is going to shake out when the action begins here tonight at Little Caesars Arena. Seriously, could not be more excited that we got Blackhawks hockey, even if it is the preseason, back in our lives. Why don't you go and drop down below in the comment section who you think is going to score the Blackhawks' first goal of the preseason? Maybe I'll give someone like $5 or $10 on Venmo or do something cool if you correctly predict it down below in the comment section. But coming up in just a moment, Blackhawks fans, before I close out today's episode, do still want to get into all the key takeaways from an important day of training camp down at Fifth Third Arena on Monday. But first, I got to talk to you all about another one of today's sponsors, which is FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer, because right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. And what I personally love about FanDuel is that it's super quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. With player props, same-game parlays, and more ways than ever to get on the action, are you ready to play? All you got to do is download the FanDuel app now or go and visit FanDuel.com today in order to get started. Again, that's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet and win $300 worth of bonus bets when it wins. Real quick, just want to say thank you to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen, here to start off your day. For your second listen, make sure to go and check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where there is no offseason, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter the most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. And you can easily go and find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. Segment 3, the Blackhawks actually scrimmaged for the first time during training camp on Monday, and kind of in opposition to years past, I'm pretty sure under Richardson, the Blackhawks were scrimmaging pretty early in training camp. I don't know if it was like day one, but I know they were getting into those kinds of activities during practice earlier than they did here this season. And the reasoning for that is Blashill mentioned he just first coming in as a new head coach, having new systems, right, and new techniques and everything. He wanted to implement those systems and at least have his players go through them a couple of days so they can kind of get used to what they're expected to do out there on the ice, as well as just kicking in conditioning. Blashill mentioned, that was going to be a good work ethic indicator for the team right from the opening day of camp. And then also he just said that he wanted to get guys time to kind of gear up and just feel comfortable in their new spots after him laying the groundwork before going into these scrimmages, which I do think ultimately makes sense. But it was nice to see a little bit of a change of pace down at Fifth Third Arena yesterday. Do want to point out real quick, the Blackhawks split into Team Red and Team White. There are still 53 players currently on the training camp roster. So, there's a lot of guys out there, and because of that, the 5-on-5 lines that were utilized in the scrimmage yesterday, Blashill specifically said not to read too much into them. However, he did say that he specifically put these groups together to work on special teams play, which is something that he really hasn't had his team go through up until Monday at training camp. So he put these groups together specifically to have good, 5-man power play units or 4-man PK units together for them to get reps and get experience before, during, and after the scrimmage with one another. So definitely wanted to talk through some of these power play and penalty kill combinations that we saw for the first time yesterday. First, for the Blackhawks, top power play unit for Team Red, Connor Bedard, Frank Nazar, Teuvo Teravainen, Tyler Bertuzzi, and Sam Renzel were all on the same team. I think that's a pretty good indicator that that's what Blashill wants his top power play to look like when the regular season opens up. Tyler Bertuzzi, no surprise in the net front role. We obviously know Connor Bedard is going to be out there, and Blashill even mentioned he thinks it's good that Bedard has been capable at playing on both the right and the left dot so far on the man advantage in his young career. So interested to see exactly where he's going to be starting, but Nazar, and Teravainen. Nazar is the one who's in the bumper role in the middle. Tavo probably on the right dot, Bedsy on the left dot, but both have the ability to rotate. And then Sam Rinzel, quarterbacking the top power play unit. Think that's a really good spot for him right out of the gate. Definitely feels already seems capable of handling that type of position. So excited to see how he's going to look getting that opportunity tonight for the Blackhawks, even though Teravainen and Bertuzzi aren't going to be in the lineup. Figure he's going to be quarterbacking the top power play unit. For the Blackhawks, second power play unit, it was actually Team White's top power play unit. Nick Foligno was in the net front position. Ryan Green was on the left side. Oliver Moore was in the bumper role. Lucas Reichel was on the right-hand side, while Matt Grzelcyk was getting the opportunity to quarterback the second power play unit. But then also, Team Red's second power play unit had Colton Dock in the net front role, Andrei Burakovsky on the left side, Ryan Donato in the bumper, Ilya Mikheyev on the right-hand side, with Artem Levshinov quarterbacking that power play unit. And I feel like the Blackhawks' true PP2 is going to wind up being a combination of both of those groups. Still got to figure out exactly what's going to happen to Ryan Green, Oliver Moore, even Matt Grzelcyk to an extent, right, where they're going to be when the regular season begins. But I feel like some combination of both of those groups is likely going to be the second power play unit. Blackhawks also rolled out some penalty kill four-mans during the scrimmage yesterday as well. And Frank Nazar, Tavo Teravainen, paired together on this Blackhawks second line. We're on the top power play unit as well. Looks like Blashill wants to keep them together for a penalty kill unit as well. And then playing defensively for that group was Ethan Del Mastro and Sam Rinzel. Team White's top penalty kill unit was Ilya Mikheyev and Jason Dickinson, two staples of the PK last season, along with Alex Vlasic and Connor Murphy. Those four are going to be a huge part of the Blackhawks and what they do shorthanded. And then Nazar and Tavo Teravainen, like I said, obviously with their speed and good two-way play, they can certainly make an impact shorthanded. Nazar had so many shorthanded chances last year that he just couldn't bury. But I do want to point out, Sam Lafferty, Nick Foligno, they both also have penalty kill prowess and will be fighting for shorthanded ice time this year. Wyatt Kaiser and Artem Levshinov were serving as the defensive pairing for that penalty kill unit. I feel like Vlasic and Murphy obviously are going to be a huge part of the PK. Ethan Del Mastro, should he make the NHL roster, I think that's a really good spot for him. I thought it was interesting to see Sam Rinzel apparently ahead of Artem Levshinov in terms of penalty kill spots right now. I feel like Rinzel obviously known more for his offensive abilities. I just would have expected Artie maybe to get that spot first, but at the same point in time, he is the younger and more inexperienced of those two players. But just all together, the Blackhawks, I think, have the capability to be a really good shorthanded bunch this year. And Blashill mentioned he's going to be running the same penalty killing system that he utilized with the Tampa Bay Lightning last year, but made sure to note that it's going to take a little bit for everything to click and set in with this new group. And it actually took the Tampa Bay Lightning until about November 1st, Blashill said specifically, to really understand what they were doing and to fully trust the system while shorthanded. And from that point on, after November 1st, the Lightning were the best penalty kill in the entire NHL. They finished 6th on the season in terms of penalty kill percentage. The Blackhawks, they were 14th on the penalty kill last year. They were, pretty decent. And I do think, Ilya Mikheyev's wheels, Frank Nazar's wheels, once he got onto the scene, that definitely helped the Blackhawks go to another level and get more shorthanded opportunities. But Blashill specifically said, with this group, they're going to be more aggressive in hounding down the puck in the neutral zone and taking time and space away from opposing players than I think the penalty kill for the Blackhawks has been in seasons past. And it makes a lot of sense, again, with this roster makeup and all the speed that they have for guys to go and shut down that time and space in a hurry. Nazar, Ilya Mikheyev, even Oliver Moore if he makes the NHL roster, right? And then defensively, you got good skaters all over the place that are more able, I think, to make those type of plays and have success with that type of style. And we've seen for Tampa Bay, Anthony Cirelli, Brandon Hagel, Blackhawks legend, of course, absolutely wreak havoc on opposing teams while shorthanded. And Tampa Bay was third in the NHL with 11 shorthanded goals last season. I think that's a good sign of what could potentially come for this Blackhawks group this year. Like I said, Frank Nazar generated so many shorthanded opportunities for himself. I'm pretty excited to see what this Blackhawks penalty kill is going to look like under Jeff Blashill, but that takes care of all the takeaways from Monday's scrimmage and special teams work at training camp, as well as everything to note before the Blackhawks hit the ice for their first preseason game against the Detroit Red Wings. That's going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Go and follow me on X at Jack Bushman 2, but make sure to subscribe to follow my strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey so you don't miss any of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Until tomorrow's episode, everyone, go Hawks, drop your Blackhawks first preseason goal scorer down below in the comment section. Maybe I'll do something cool with it. But until tomorrow's episode, wrong button. Real embarrassing. I'm sick. I'm blaming it on that. Enjoy the rest of your days, Blackhawks fans. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.